In football, as in almost every sport, it's often a mental game and one that you have to be able to overcome. But for the Detroit Lions, they have taken this unique mental mindset and attitude that is now allowing them to win games and should be able to allow them to win it all in 2024. We're going to talk about it in this episode, folks. Stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, old Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. But before we dive on in, I wanted to share something really cool with you guys because as we know, on Sunday it was Father's Day. Well, my wife and children decided to get me something really, really cool that I absolutely felt I had to share with you guys. So I'm going to share with you guys what they decided to get with me here. So you guys are going to see me kind of popping it out of screen a little bit here, but I wanted to share this stuff with you. Here's the first thing that they got me that was really, really cool. My wife and son decided to get this for me. I thought that this was a very, very cool gift, a very cool thing that they got for me. Absolutely love it. Gonna have to find somewhere around here to hang it up, but absolutely enjoy this all to death. I'm sorry you guys are seeing my my recording light there, but yep, that was the first thing that I got. Very, very cool. And then the second thing that I got from my daughter, this is also really cool. She had this custom made for me, but as you can clearly see, this is a metal sign that has been carved out that has my channel's name used on it around the outer ring right here. It says Motor City Mania. Again, gonna have to find somewhere around here to hang this thing up, but absolutely wonderful gifts. Very, very fortunate to have my wife and kids and you know how they support me. They get stuff for me like this. It's absolutely wonderful, and I'm so thankful for it. And you know what? I'm so thankful for being a father, and it's such a joy to know that, you know, they know exactly what to get for me. And I know for all fathers out there, you know that it's a unique blessing to have children and a family. So just wanted to share that with you guys. It's absolutely fun. But with that being said, let's actually get into the content here. So here's the thing, folks. When it comes to sports, when it comes to football in particular, I know that you can talk about any sport you want, but we're talking about football here. Football is a sport that is very, very much a mental game. And the reason I say that is because you can talk about having the ability to be physically gifted, you can talk about having, all these physical talents. But realistically, what happens up here in this 1 square foot of real estate is what will make the difference between winners and losers more often than not than any physical gifts you may or may not possess. Now, why are we talking about this in relation to the Detroit Lions? The reason why we're talking about it is because we have to understand the Detroit Lions history here a little bit. And for anyone who's been a Detroit Lions fan for any, length of time, especially within the last 20 or something years, you would realize that the longer that you have been a Detroit Lions fan, the longer you have figured out that there was a losing mindset, there was a loser attitude when it came to the Detroit Lions organization because, well, for the longest time, that was all the Lions were known for, is that, hey, they are a team that are perpetually losing. They're never going to figure out how to win. That was how the whole SOL mindset came about. That was how, hey, you know what? The media looked at the Lions as if it was a death sentence to go there for your career. The only reason you ever went to Detroit is if you were trying to end your career out and, try and make some money, or because nobody else would freaking sign you. That was the viewpoint that a lot of people had about Detroit over the years. But now you have to think about it this way. The Lions of today, the Lions that we have right now, they decided to do something that was very, very unique in being able to reverse everything. And the way I call it is exactly like I have it in my thumbnail image. It's reverse psychology. They decided to take everything that was negative about them, everything that people thought was, bad, and they somehow turned it into a positive. They somehow turned it into areas of strength. Because you have to realistically look at the Lions and be like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of things about the Lions that are negative, at least from when you were starting this whole process with Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes back in 2021. You couldn't realistically look at the Lions from back then and be like, oh yeah, we've got a lot of things going for us. It's like, no, we have a lot of things that are not going for us, but we've got to find a way to really change things, which means we're going to have to take things that are not really going for us and we're going to have to make them into areas of strength. And you think about it, the Lions have now kind of rallied around those areas that used to be weaknesses, and now they use them as, building blocks. They use them as ways to say, hey, this is what makes us unique. This is what gives us our strength. This is our rallying cry. Think about it. The Detroit Lions. I hate to go over our history, but 2008, we go 0-16. You think about it. Over the last 20 years, we've been one of the least winningest franchises in freaking NFL. We've been constantly jeered by the NFL, jeered by the rest of the NFC North rivals. Even to some degree, we still are. But you think about it, that's just the NFL side of things. Then you kind of take a look at the rest of the United States as a whole. The city of Detroit was long held in contempt for crime. It was held for economic poverty. There was a lot of things about the city that were not really viewed in a positive light. And then, like I said, people did not want to come and play into the Detroit Lions because it was like, hey, it was considered a death sentence or the only place you would go at the end of your career if you were trying to make a quick buck. Well, now the Lions have taken those points and they have now turned them into areas of, okay, we can use those for areas of strength. Now, it didn't necessarily happen overnight. It's not like they instantaneously were able to take those points and say, oh, we're now going to use that as a strength factor. We're going to use that as a building block. Think about it with the free agents. Back when Brad Holmes started in 2021, the Lions could not get really anybody that wanted to play for them. First and foremost, it was because, one, the Lions didn't really have a whole lot of damn money because, again, Quinn Tricia had pretty much destroyed their salary cap. And because of that, the Lions didn't have a whole lot of money to go out and spend on. But at the same time, the Lions were in such a perpetually bad state of affairs that it was like, listen, nobody wanted to play for the Lions really because they felt that the Lions weren't going to go anywhere. And you had this new GM and you had this new head coach who was like, listen, those guys don't really have a whole lot of trust built up. So it's like, if you're going to go out on a limb, you're going to have a lot of faith. You're going to have a lot of patience. So the Lions had to go out and get quote-unquote lesser free agents that at the time nobody else wanted, that needed a place to call home, that needed a place to play. And now, think about this. A lot of those guys that the Lions went out in 2021 that were the quote-unquote lesser free agents, they have now been turned into big parts of our team. Case in point, Alex Anzalone, Khalif Raymond. Those are two guys that instantaneously come to my mind when I think of that. Because it's like, hey, we signed those guys. They weren't considered big free agents at the time, but now they're big-time parts of our offense and defense. And think about it as well. Over the last 2 years, whenever we've let players go, whether it was in the offseason after we got done with training camp, whether it was in the offseason once we actually got done with the season, and then we start actually getting into the free agency period, whether it was restricted or unrestricted, you've now got teams that are gobbling up our freaking old players because they realize that there is something about Detroit now that they absolutely want to have. It's not like, oh, as soon as we lose a player, they just go out on the free market and nobody touches them for months on it. It's like, no, as soon as they hit the market, they usually find a job within about a week or two. So think about that. The Lions have found ways like that to make their whole mindset a strong area, to use that mental grittiness, to use that mental ability to say, hey, we're not going to let these areas that used to haunt us continue to haunt us. Because the way I look at it is, the lion that's in the jungle, it never fears to walk alone. It's always willing to kind of go out on a ledge. It's always willing to be a lone hunter if it needs to. Well, think about what the Lions have had to do over the last couple of years to really show themselves this way. Because the Lions, when Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, they first started, they did not shy away from adversity. They knew what they were getting into. They knew what they were going to have to try and prove. They knew it was going to take work. And they also knew that, hey, a lot of people were going to take a look at what they were doing and were probably not going to necessarily see the vision that they had. It was going to take time. But you also have to think about it from this perspective. They also were willing to take criticism, and they were willing to learn from it. Not necessarily from the media, but they were willing to take criticism for those that were in the organization, whether it was coaches, whether it was scouts, whether it was ownership, whatever the case is. They had to be willing to take criticism because it's like, listen, we have to take constructive criticism to learn from it, because it's like, listen, okay, this worked, this did not work. Okay, why did this not work? What caused it to fail? What caused us to have a problem here? Let's learn from it. Let's move on. That is how you get better. The Lions also decided to start doing this. They said, listen, we're going to trust our team. We're going to trust our process. Like I said, we're not going to let outside voices influence what we're doing. Again, I've said this multiple times. The Lions may hear what goes on outside the building. They may hear what goes on in the media. They may hear what analysts say about them, but they don't listen to them. There's a difference between hearing and listening. My whole point is that the Lions have been like, listen, we trust what we're doing because we know that it works for us. They are no longer letting other people influence how they manage their team, which has allowed them to be super razor focused on what they need to do in order to make this team function. And then once you start taking a look at all those points, you now start getting into a smaller subtext of points. The Lions, again, some of these points are kind of, I would say, what do you want to call it? They go with every team. But the Lions have taken it and they have made it even further their own. Let's talk about this one. Hard work. Again, if you've played football, every coach will tell you it's hard work you got to put in. You got to put in the hard work to be able to win. You got to put in the hard work to be able to go out there and play the sport. Okay, everybody knows about hard work. But it's not just about working hard with the Detroit Lions. It's about being deliberate. It's about being purposeful with your reps, being able to get things down to perfection, honing those little details, taking great pride in your craft. Again, the reason why I say it this way is because what is Detroit known for? Detroit is known for the automotive industry. It's known for the big three. It's known for Ford. It's known for freaking GM. It's known for Dodge. It's known for all of these freaking automotive companies that when they started out, how did they make their name? They had to be very deliberate. They had to be very purposeful with how they built their craft. They had to be very purposeful with how they built their cars. It's the same way with a football team. It's like, listen, every time you take a rep, every time you take a play, it's like you're putting in one more piece to that car in order to make it run. And the more purposeful, the more deliberate, the more perfect you run that play, it's just like as if you were putting that car together perfectly, piece by piece by piece on an assembly line. Same exact concept. It's a little bit of a different concept to think about, but it's just the exact same way. Imagine, if you will, since obviously the Lions and the Ford family are, closely, put together. Imagine, if you will, a Ford Mustang is being put together, or a Ford F-150 is being put together on an assembly line, and the Detroit Lions as a team are part of that assembly line, and they are literally handcrafting every single piece of that car. And as it goes down the assembly line, every piece is perfectly put into the machine. Every piece is perfectly calibrated. Everything is just put together perfectly. That's how you put together a football team when you're talking about it the way the Detroit Lions are doing it. They love putting in the hard work because they know that putting in that hard work is going to result in a much more perfect outcome for them. Then you have to think about it this way. The Detroit Lions, they also have another unique characteristic about them. They are willing to challenge the norm, and not just challenge the norm like, every so often. They live for challenging the norm. They live for challenging the quote-unquote status quo. Think about it. The Detroit Lions are one of those teams where it's like, hey, if every other team would tell you it's better to go this route, the Lions are like, okay, that's one way to do it. We're going to go this way. Think about it. The Detroit Lions are an aggressive football team. We've seen over the last couple of years how teams have become more aggressive in terms of their play calling, especially on fourth down. But the Detroit Lions said, okay, we see what you're doing, NFL, but that's not nearly aggressive enough. Dan Campbell was like, okay, I'm going to literally ratchet that up by a factor of 10. The Lions are now the most aggressive fourth down calling team in the NFL, without a shadow of a doubt. And on top of that, the Detroit Lions are one of those teams that has no problem whatsoever in calling trick plays on fourth down, especially out of punt formations. How many times have we seen Jack Fox get back there and he'll throw a pass to somebody? How many times have we seen Jalen Reeves-Maybin take a direct snap and pick up a first down because it's only like 2 or 3 yards? Every team in the NFL, as soon as they play to the Detroit Lions, realize that as soon as it's fourth down, it is not just an automatic punt. There is always going to be a potential factor. There's always going to be a potential risk that the Detroit Lions are going to try and go for it. So that's what I'm trying to say. The Lions have very much gotten used to challenging the norm of what is the conventional way of thinking when it comes to playing the game. And it's the same way when they play on offense. Again, take a look at Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson has become one of the most creative offensive minds in NFL. Granted, that's because of the fact that he has a coach that is very aggressive. But we have seen Ben Johnson do play designs and play calls that, while we've seen a little bit of it from other teams, not to the same degree that Ben Johnson does. Again, everybody wants to talk about the freaking tackle catch that Penei Sewell had. I think it was against the Vikings about a year or so ago. You also have to think about it this way. We've seen end-arounds. We've seen freaking more types of flea flickers and a whole bunch of other different types of play designs that they started off with a conventional design that somebody else had. But then Ben Johnson and the Detroit Lions, they kind of added their own little twist to it. So again, that's how the Detroit Lions have taken their own unique blend of things. They've taken their own unique little twist on things and said, hey, we're going to, in essence, give it our kind of version. Then you have to think about this last part. If you think about it, what is something else the Lions do that's unique? They revel in competition. They love to compete. They love to seek out better opponents. They love to have those opportunities to get better put in front of them. Why do I say it like this? The reason why is because most NFL teams, they don't like doing that. Now, I know they're going to say whenever they get in front of the cameras, oh yeah, you know what, we look forward to the opportunity to play this team, we look forward to this, we look forward to that. Okay, that right there is player talk, that right there is coach talk. I'm going to tell you this right now. Most NFL teams would much rather have an easy win rather than going up against always the best teams in the NFL. The Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell, that is the exact opposite. They do not give a damn. They do not give a turkey if you are the best team in the NFL. They do not give a damn if you're the worst team in the NFL. They look at you all the same way. We are going to go out there and we are going to destroy you. We are going to stomp a mud hole in you. The best way I can think about this is go back to the beginning of last year when the Lions were scheduled as was scheduled as the season opener on Thursday Night Football against the Kansas City Chiefs. Everybody in their brother had the Lions losing to the Kansas City Chiefs because they're the world defending Super Bowl champions. The Lions were like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. We're still going to go in there and we're still going to play our game. We're still going to win. And what happened? The Lions won. And even after the Lions won, you had people in the NFL that wanted to try and say, oh, yeah, the Lions won. But as we know that announcer said, with an asterisk. They wanted to try and, again, still diminish the fact that the Lions didn't win the game the way that it should have been won. But the point of the matter is that the Lions were like, listen, we do not care about your perception. We do not care about how you view things. We look at the fact that, hey, we are playing top competition. We love playing top competition. Even if we lose, we still love playing top competition because it gets us better. And we're not going to have a good result like winning against the Kansas City Chiefs diminished because everybody else thinks, well, you know, because you didn't have Chris Jones or you didn't have Travis Kelce, that makes it less of a win. No, it's still a win. It's still a good, resounding win. A win is a win. I know some people are going to try and argue that point, but it's like, listen, for anybody that thought that win against the Kansas City Chiefs didn't mean anything, take a look at the fact that the Lions were literally one quarter away last year from getting to the Super Bowl. That's the difference. The Lions didn't care that Chris Jones or Travis Kelce weren't out there for that game. They still looked at it like, we're playing the World Championship Chiefs right now. We're going to play against them like we're going to a Super Bowl. And that mindset they carried all the way up until they lost against the San Francisco 49ers in the conference championship game. Again, that's my whole point. The Lions take a look at competition and they do not shy away from it. They will look at that competition and say, hey, We want to play the top teams because that makes us better. That makes us better prepared to do the chances to get to the Super Bowl, to win a Super Bowl. And we saw how that mindset literally almost got them to within going to a Super Bowl. So when you think about it, this entire unique prospect, this entire unique mindset, it has the Lions in a great position to be able to go to a Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl this year. Because think about it. The Lions are a very, very hungry team. They want to win. They want to win bad. And think about this. A lion runs fastest when it is hungry. When it is hungry, it will chase down its prey and it will get it no matter what it has to do. Well, think about it. The Lions, like I said right now, they are very hungry. They are extremely hungry. They are chasing down their prey, which is to get to a Super Bowl and to win a Super Bowl. These Lions have bucked all conventional trends and rules, and they're not afraid to go their own way. They're not afraid to say, hey, yeah, you know what? We used to be 0-16. We used to be a team that nobody wanted to come and join. But now look at what we've done. We have taken all of the negatives that used to be connected to us, and we've turned it into positives. We've turned it in as part of our identity. Hence the reason why it's called a grit team now. That's why they have the grit hats. That's why they identify themselves with all those different monikers, whether it's One Pride, Motor City, 313. They have taken everything that people used to look at them as a negative thing and said, that's our identity. That's our strength. That's what makes everything positive for us. So again, that right there, allowing them to remain hungry, that right there, allowing to take everything that has been negative about them in the past, turn it into a point of strength, has allowed them to become a near pinnacle of success in the NFL. And now it's why I believe in 2024, they're going to reach the top of that success mountain. They're going to reach the pinnacle of success, and they're going to win it all. Because when you have all of these things going for you, when you have the mental game and you have the mental mindset taken down, hey, there's very little that's going to be able to stop you. Because, again, football is more than anything a mental game, not a physical one. But anyway, folks, I figured I'd put this out here because, again, I always love to think about things from a different perspective. I always like to try and view things in a way that, some people may think about but not necessarily dive too much into. This is one of those topics, in my opinion. But anyway, having said that, I'm going to end the episode, and I just want to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed, you not had a chance to do so, again, highly encourage y'all to subscribe. But I also encourage y'all, please make sure you turn on that bell notification icon. Again, we want to make sure you turn on the notification icon so that way as soon as I push something out, you guys don't miss out on the new content. So again, make sure you turn that on, make sure you subscribe. Also encourage y'all, you make sure to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can. I know that there are several people that have been doing that as well. Again, another one that I've also seen in the past that's done this is a guy that goes by the name of Relishing Martins. This is a guy that on Facebook has shared my content quite a bit. And again, like I said yesterday or the day before with Dean DeGreer, I love giving recognition to people who share my content and who tell me about it because, again, I like to give people airtime. I like to make sure that you guys, the fans, who are doing just as much hard work as I am, get some recognition. So, again, please share the content. The more we share it, the greater the channel grows, the greater the channel's reach and spread. And with that being said to everybody, I hope y'all are having a great day. I hope y'all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. And with that, God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.